How's it going, guys? Welcome to your morning cup. Now we started off with some real intense AI news, considering the fact that drones and the future of robotics is always something that is very disconcerting to a lot of us, and we're very freaked out about the future of things. When it comes to Terminator essentially turning into a reality, well, turns out that a weaponized drone attacked humans even though it wasn't explicitly told to do so. The story is, the Cargo 2 quadcopter was equipped with explosives, and well, it was deployed during a conflict between the Libyan government forces and a breakaway faction. What happened then was that the drone was essentially put out by the government forces against the Khalifa Haftar, which is the Libyan National Army's military breakaway faction called the Khalifa Haftar. Now the drone was released, and turns out the drone was not supposed to do what it ended up doing, which was that it actually hunted down these Haftar forces as they were retreating. It went out of its way to, well, kill. And there is no easy way to put this because it's freaky every way you look at it. They didn't put out the drone thinking that it would override its existing commands and then refuse to retreat itself. So by all means, it didn't retreat. It instead chased down the enemy that was already retreating, thereby making them even further away from its range that it could then comprehend going back towards. But this is just a freaky story to begin with. What might happen next with robots? Who knows? Sri Lanka is facing its worst ever beach pollution crisis, a cargo ship that's essentially on fire. Now, the Singaporean flagged cargo ship caught fire near Colombo beach. Tons of microplastic granules was all over the place, forcing a ban on fishing. Much of the cargo, including the 25 tons of intensive chemicals like nitroacid, sodium hydroxide, various lubricants, seem to have been completely destroyed. And another worst thing about this is the sheer amount of chemicals that have now been absorbed into the upper atmosphere. It turns out that the meteorological department is predicting acid rain. This is by no means something very easy to digest when it comes to information, because, well, people are fighting all over the world in various aspects to try and preserve the earth in all of its categories. And now when we look at something like this, a disaster like this, you can best believe that the Sri Lankan government is going to put hefty fines on the ship's company. This is still a developing situation, and what might come next is going to be, well, if you saw various lawsuits and upwards of $900 million being asked for the Ever Given incident, this is a way worse incident, because the outfall of this incident is without a doubt going to affect human lives. It already is. Fishing is banned even for the communities that live nearby. So now the Mehul Choksi thing that we spoke about, and we were like, there are things developing that we'll talk about. So here's what I was talking about the other day. A private jet was sent by the Indian government to repatriate fugitive diamond trader and Punjab National Bank scam accused Mehul Choksi. Now, the plane landed at Douglas Charles Airport in Dominica. Choksi is currently in custody of the Dominica police. The Indian government seems to be going out of its way to make sure that he's repatriated to India so he can stand trial. Now, this story is so dense because initially Mehul Choksi's lawyer claimed that he was actually abducted and brought into Dominica. He was not abducted in any fashion. He came to Dominica on a boat and was busted here. This is intense because Mehul Choksi is a very big name in the list of people that have duped the nation out of thousands and thousands of crores and just vanished into thin air, into a foreign land, and continue to live a very lavish life, whereas the people that he exploited to garner those funds either ended up killing themselves or facing poverty the likes of which they had never imagined, because they had saved so much and tried to be so legitimate in their standings. Choksi was detained in Dominica after going missing from Antigua and Barbuda. A Dominican court extended the stay on Choksi's deportation to India and said that the hearing will be held on June the 2nd. But as we know, situations have developed since. And then this happens, the biggest scam in its day, and Mehul Choksi was gone, vanished into thin air. And so many years later, it seems to be picking up the pace when it comes to bringing these people to justice. First Nirav Modi, then Vijay Mallya. Now Mehul Choksi. It's very good news for the nation. It's very promising news for the country. Whether the funds can be well garnered back is another thing, but then again, justice is served. So, an update about the whole Vijay Mallya situation. Well, the bank is going to sell upwards of 5,500 crores worth of shares that he had in the United Breweries companies. What we understand is that Mallya's 16.15% stake in the UV Group, 5,500 crores, is going to be sold via block deals. A source said that the bank is going to be selling shares to recover the dues that Mallya owes them. SBI as well as other banks are by no means going to hold back, because for the longest time Vijay Mallya got away with a lot of things because he had established some really high-end connections in the industries of finance and banking and even the government up to a certain margin. Now we're looking at people who are trying to distance themselves as much as they possibly can when it comes to Vijay Mallya, and this is exactly what you're witnessing now. For the longest time, his entire proceedings right now, even in the UK court, was the fact that he filed for bankruptcy, and he was like, I'm bankrupt and I'm unable to pay whatever you guys are asking me to pay. But his shares in the United Breweries is now officially up for grabs by the banks, and they are by no means going to let go of an opportunity to re-garner upwards of 5,500 crores. And it is still a long way from what he owes the banks, but 5,500 crores should put a sizable dent in his so-called garnered wealth that he has split into so many various aspects that is really impossible today to know how much Vijay Mallya truly is worth. Now, Google has been in the news a lot, considering that there are a lot wrong with a lot of policies that Google has been implementing across its spectrum. Alphabet in general has been in the limelight recently, considering that there are a lot of insider news that has come out which is not good for its future in terms of its investors, its stockholders. So Google executives and engineers were aware of the fact that Google made it hard for smartphone users to keep their locations and informations private. The number of people that are using facilities like Google as well as every other social media platform out there, most of us are using that and not as many are using it via laptops and computers and such. So you're looking at an overwhelming discrepancy when it comes to the ratio that are using the internet and everything that it has to offer on their phone. An insider report citing unredacted documents in a lawsuit. The document suggested that Google collected location data even after users had turned off location sharing. And this is not where things actually get worse. Where things get worse is the fact that Google pressured phone manufacturers into keeping their privacy settings hidden. So the actual privacy settings that can make sure that you're legitimately off the so-called grid, they are not even available for you to turn off and on. They're not available for you to do anything with, as a matter of fact. What are your thoughts on the whole privacy margin of things, and what are your thoughts on this particular instance wherein when you want to turn your location off and you're under the impression that no app can access your location because you've turned them off, turns out that you aren't really able to turn it off in general, which was always a speculation to begin with. People were always saying this out loud that think that you have turned your location off, but of course people can track you even if your phone's on. That made sense, of course. But considering that now it's blatant because of a search engine doing so, considering earlier your service provider could track you even if your phone was off and it would ping every time you turned it on, even if your net was off, even if you are not using any packet data information, even if your mobile data completely drained, or if you're in a place wherein you have no internet access, turns out that it wouldn't matter.